asset management, has got to be a part of your business plan from day one, and having the correct resources and people that have done it before, because you can just drive tremendous more NOI for your property.
Welcome to The Path to Wealth, the show about well-being, fulfillment, and financial freedom. And I'm your host, Hannes Henschel. Welcome back to The Path to Wealth. I'm your host, Hannes Henschel. Today marks a special occasion as we delve into an exclusive interview with Gary Lipsky, a multifamily syndicator and the CEO of Break of Day Capital. Gary's remarkable portfolio boosts apartment units valued an impressive $250 million. He has distributed over $25 million to his investors till date. Beyond his real estate prowess, Gary's dynamic role as a host on the Real Estate Investor podcast highlights his engagement with experts, providing invaluable insights for investor education. He is the author of the best-selling book, Best in Class. Serving as the visionary behind the Asset Management Summit, Gary remains a sought-after speaker at industry conferences. Welcome to the show, Gary.
Thanks for having me, Hannes.
Yeah, of course. First things first, how did you end up in a room with Dr. Joe Dispenza and David Meltzer?
So somehow David Meltzer, world-renowned speaker, he was on my investor list, and he kept, when we sent out a newsletter, he would respond to me and his assistant, let's work with this guy. Let's work with this guy. And, I didn't know what that meant. And eventually I did an Instagram live with David, great guy. And then he was having this dinner with Joe Dispenza, and he sent out an invitation to me and whoever was on his list, I guess. He's like, would you be interested in coming? I said, sure. I love Dr. Joe. And so they sent me the details, and I paid a fee to be there, and it was a really cool event. 50 people from all different backgrounds and amazing speakers, and you've heard it time and time again. It's just being in that room. Your network is your net worth. So I'm excited to see what comes out of that.
Yeah. Have you been familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza's work before the dinner?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not a hardcore fan, but I definitely, manifestation, everything is mindset. And I'm a big believer in that. He sat, 5 seats away from me, and just seeing him on the panel and hearing what he had to say was, it was awesome.
So how much of your success would you say is that kind of visualization, manifestation, to actually do what you've done, not only in the real estate space, but, you've had other projects, endeavors, and companies before that you successfully exited? Yeah,
my mindset is everything. And on everything I've done, there's so many no's, so many obstacles in the way. Nothing goes perfect. People see the success, but they don't, it's that iceberg, that you see the top part. You don't see, the struggles that go through that. And it's just, pushing through and okay, if A doesn't work, then you go to B, then C, then D, then E, and just, finding a way to get it done and realizing, okay, what's the worst that can happen? I'm going to make it. I'm going to be okay, and keep pushing through. And I think a lot of kids these days, they have a lot more anxiety than I ever had growing up, and a lot more worries about, their careers and being successful and whatnot. Like, I didn't have like a straight path at all. I've kind of zigged and zagged, but just applying my skills and, working hard and solving problems has served me very, very well.
Yeah. So what are some of the problems that you had to solve to serve your passive investors well? Since, you founded a syndication company, and by now you've acquired $250 million worth of assets. I'm sure you had a lot of problems to solve.
Well, the first thing is looking at a property and creating a vision for that, seeing value where others don't see value. Okay, then you've got to underwrite it conservatively with lots of buffers, meaning things are going to break. You've got to build in money for that, for HVAC and plumbing and roof, and maybe none of that stuff breaks out, and you're lucky, but you've got to build in a budget for that. Then you've got to, work with the property management company, make sure you're at the same business plan for that property. You've got to raise the money, and that's never easy. And today raising money is harder than ever. You've got to get the right debt on that deal. And you have to get all these things to close by the time that you said you're going to close. And sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And then, maybe you have a Texas freeze or COVID or, some kind of obstacle, and you've got to figure out a solution to that. You have turnover. I mean, everyone has turnover in their property, and it really sets you back, and you've got to work through that. But having lots of data points, seeing where all the bottlenecks are, helps you, being proactive is just huge. If you're measuring all these different things and you're having your weekly calls and you're looking at your financials, you're going to be way ahead of the game than most other people, because a lot of people are just chasing their next deal, and they're not focusing on execution of that business plan and not putting enough resources into that. And it takes a lot of time. It's not the sexy part of the job, but that's where you can make huge amounts of difference in your NOI and ultimately in the return on investment to your investors.
Yeah, and I think especially in the current environment, that's more important than ever, because everybody else is basically swimming naked.
Yeah.
If you don't focus on these fundamentals.
Yeah. Everyone's been talking about it more recently in the last 6 months, but, asset management, has got to be a part of your business plan from day one, and having the correct resources, and people that have done it before, because, you can just drive tremendous more, NOI for your property. And, that could be the difference between making, a 1.5 equity multiple on a deal to 2 to 2.5 even,
Yeah. So are you looking at any deals in the current environment? I mean, obviously, interest rates have changed, the market in general, there is so much uncertainty. Are you focusing solely on operation, or are you still in acquisition mode?
We're always looking for deals, and that gives us data points too. So even if, we'll put an offer and maybe we're at 30 million and the seller wanted 33 and we didn't get it, but that still gives us data points on where the market is at any point. We have our first deal under contract in 9 months. So we're really excited about that. Institutional grade in Tucson, where we've done 9 deals, and this will be our first deal in the fund. And, we have the right debt on it. We'll have almost $3 million in value created day one, just because they don't have low flow on the property, and their water bill is more than twice as high as any of our other properties with the same amount of units. They had a really high insurance bill because they had a claim. So we're looking for value add plays without having to do a massive lift. There's cash flow from the beginning. And so we're really excited about this deal.
Yeah. The first time that we really got into water, it actually blew my mind how much that can move the needle.
Yeah. Residents don't always love it. They don't want the aerator on the shower head sometimes, but I mean, so our plumber, and we didn't even use these numbers, we were more conservative. I think it was like on the 50% savings, it was like $111,000 savings year one. Never mind the grass that we're going to take out and add some turf. So if you just take, I'll run a number for you, 111,000 divided by a 5 cap, that's over $2 million in value that we're creating. So yeah, huge opportunity. I'm surprised the previous owner didn't do that, but we'll take advantage of that.
So is that, you said it's institutional grade, but is it mom and pop managed? Like
no.
How can somebody leave so much value add on the table?
It's an institutional seller, but sometimes maybe someone was asleep at the wheel, or it didn't make sense. Maybe they have their reasonings. I don't know. Maybe they forgot.
Yeah, actually, so one of the things that I've seen is that, and that again goes to what you said earlier, there's people who focus on operations, and then there's others who are more interested in acquisition, and then eventually, it becomes part of their portfolio, and they're not as dialed in on those metrics. And that's the beauty of someone like you, who can speak to the investors and be like, hey, we're actually dialed in here and we notice when data points change. And this is something that we take advantage of. And that's where we create additional value for you as an LP.
Yeah. And there's other opportunities all the time. I would say we're probably somewhere in the middle as far as tech, but we're adding EV chargers to all of our properties because that I think will give us an advantage over properties that don't have it. But and not all of our properties necessarily need it, but we want to have them just in case residents, if a resident's going to choose between one property or not, if they have an EV charger, we're going to get that resident. We're not super high tech on any of our properties just because they're more C plus B, where it might make more sense for A, but we're always there's lots of trends and you have to stay on top of what the latest trends are to maximize your NOI.
Have you started implementing some of the solar panel strategies yet with the ongoing support from the government's incentives?
So we have 2 properties that are master metered, and it should finally go live over the next few weeks. It's been a lot longer process than what they promised. I think they said within a year, and I would say probably closer to a year and a half. And part of it is getting permits from the city of Tucson. But what we didn't buy the solar, and we could have for about, let's say 1.2 million. We'd rather lease it and not be the owners. So the savings that we get is going to be a lot less. So we're going to save about $20,000 per property. But we didn't have to put all that money up front. We don't have to, own the property. Now we don't get the tax benefits, but we didn't necessarily need them because we got them through the cost seg study on the properties as well. But we're really looking forward to seeing that savings.
And that in itself positions the property, more beneficial. Now there is a different kind of generation, the next generation of renters that are slightly more greenish minded. And you can go there and be like, hey, we have solar panels and we have the plug right there. I mean, you basically, you run your vehicle from here.
Yep, absolutely. And also with the solar, which is nice, is that they can provide some covered parking as well. So we can actually charge for the covered parking, $20 per stall, multiply that over however many stalls, multiply that by 12 months divided by the cap rate. Again, you're generating more and more money.
Yeah. And the first time I thought about covered solar parking, it just made it even more attractive. It's like, you're basically making money with the roof while you're getting paid for providing it.
Yep.
So what are some of the other challenges that you had to overcome as a GP in the last couple of years? Like you faced COVID, you faced interest rate hikes. Did you have to do any capital calls or?
Never any capital calls, and I don't foresee us ever having to do one. We had one property that we knew it was rough going in. We didn't realize how rough it was. So we did have some drugs, some guns on the property, and our staff handled it really well. But ultimately, they got burned out because it was very taxing over time. And so we had a lot of turnover at that property, which was, I understand it from an employee standpoint. Like I don't want to have my employees have to deal with that kind of nonsense, but that was a great deal. We sold that for over 3x in under 20 months. We really helped improve the community and fix it up. But, unfortunately it was rough, in the first 6 months or so,
I think whenever it gets into drugs and guns, it can get really intense. And I think you ultimately just have to be happy if you get, and everybody working for you gets out of it fine. Like it, yeah. Yeah,
you don't, I don't want to buy a property like that ever again. And we didn't, when you walk on the property, like it didn't feel like that at all. But certainly it got rougher at night and whatnot. And so, yeah, you want to avoid those properties. Those properties are hard to turn, because when you have that element there, it's harder to get good renters. So it does take some time, but there was a lot of room to push on the rent, and we were able to get a lot of the bad people out and greatly improve that place.
So how did you take that on step by step? How did you maybe provide additional security to make good tenants stay? And how did you encourage the bad apples to leave?
Yeah. So we did install cameras. We did have a security team that came by. We had a good team in place that was standing up and helping them get out. There was one of the residents had a ton of cars on the property that we had to tow, and maybe it was gang related or whatnot, because it was hard to find a tow company to get those cars out. But eventually we found a company that would do that. And then just going through the eviction process as well, and working through that. It doesn't happen overnight. It is a slow process, but again, I'm very thankful to our on-site team that has to deal with those headaches. And eventually we worked through it and greatly improved the NOI of the property, and we're able to sell it to an institutional buyer.
Yeah. So you mentioned that the new property, the first acquisition in 9 months, is wrapped into a fund. What kind of plans do you have for the fund?
Yeah, so we're going to put 3 to 5 deals in the fund, just our typical, value add deals. Although I feel like we're able to extract a lot more value than maybe your typical operator, because we're very creative. We've done student housing to multifamily. We've done garden office to multifamily. We find value where others don't. But just sticking to, we're very focused on a few markets, and we've got thousands of data points in those markets. We've been working in those markets for a while, and that helps give us an advantage where maybe some operators kind of do the shotgun approach and they're looking kind of all over the place, and you can't be an expert in tons of markets. You just can't. And so we visit our properties on a monthly basis. We're always looking at new properties, walking the comps, and that just gives us a competitive advantage.
Yeah. Do you plan on building out your own vertically integrated companies to serve your tenants better?
So I get asked that question a lot, and I don't want to, quite honestly. My last business, I had over 700 employees and 700 contractors, and it's just it's an HR nightmare. You're never staffed up fully. In Tucson, I rely on a company who's been doing it for 30 plus years. They only do it in Tucson. They have that market expertise as well. So I rely on them. And other cities where we invest, I rely on the third party. This way I can focus on what I do best and not have to really run another business. I know people say when you're vertically integrated, you can get, maybe a 10 out of 10 on property management. I disagree, because you're still going to have the same problems. You're still going to have turnover and this and that. But with my property management company, I know I've learned over time some of their strengths and weaknesses, and we can help cover some of their weaknesses to get what we want out of it. It is a good partnership, and we're able to cover some of the gaps.
Yeah. I think you're looking at it very reflectively. You know what it takes to build that out, and while I understand, or other operators see an advantage in doing so, it obviously is literally like building another company.
And this allows us to be more nimble. If we don't like that market anymore, we can move to another market if it just changes over time. And if we had a property management company, we're gonna have to keep servicing a certain amount of deals and whatnot, and it wouldn't be as easy to move it to another city. So I like staying lean and mean.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you're active in 3 markets. You mentioned Tucson. Are you active in Phoenix?
Yeah, we've done 2 deals in Phoenix. The market was really overheated for a while. It's since come down. You're seeing 20, 25% discounts from where it was. We've been close on a few deals, though we haven't gotten any of those deals. We've also been looking in Albuquerque and Vegas and Denver for probably the last year and a half. We haven't pulled the trigger on anything yet, but again, building lots and lots of data points, building relationships. So if we see something we like, then we could finally pull the trigger on something.
Yeah, what's your case for Denver? I just came through Denver a couple of weeks ago, and it's like what Tony Robbins says. You call out a color, and then all you see is the colors. The last couple of weeks I've been focused on Denver. So what's your case for Denver these days?
So I like the Denver suburbs. It's consistently growing, family oriented, job diversity, job growth, population growth, not too expensive. So I like it for the long term, and I want to be in a concentric circle too. There's markets that I like in Florida or the Southeast. It's just I'm not going to be there on a consistent basis. It's very far away, so I want to be
Yeah.
in markets that are close where I can be there on a consistent basis and develop relationships. And so those are the reasons I like Denver. But again, we haven't found something that we liked enough, but we're building those data points. So when we see something then that fits our criteria and the number that we like, then we could jump on it.
Yeah. What is a project that you're currently excited about, maybe even outside of multifamily real estate? Something close to your heart.
I just finished a spec home in my area. We've done a couple of spec homes. We're probably not going to do any more, but I love the creative side of things and seeing it from ground up. That's been pretty cool. But I mean, that's what I love about real estate. I love the creative side of things and the business side of things, how they blend. Creating value, improving communities, and improving the lives of our investors. So it's a lot of win-win scenarios.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I was so attracted to it, because it was one of those industries where I saw people cheering each other, helping each other, lifting each other up. And at the same time, nobody had to lose for it to happen.
Absolutely.
Like, it seemed that truly each party can have a win on their own, but together.
Yeah. I think in any other business, there is some greed, but yes, this is a really nice community where I learn from all different levels of people, and I help teach other people as well, and so it's just not your typical industry. You never know where your next partner is going to come from. You never know where your next investor is going to come from. I've gotten money investors from people that have done $1 billion of deals and $2 billion worth of deals, and I was shocked that they were coming in to invest with me, but I was honored as well.
Yeah. And that's I would say that's exactly it. Sometimes you don't know who you're gonna sit up next to at the table. Just like you said, you were invited to the dinner with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and a door seemed to open once you, or as I said, you get more lucky the harder you work, and you certainly did the work over the last couple of years. Yeah. So one of the questions that I always like to ask is, what do you consider a life well lived?
So Jesse Itzler talks a lot about this, kind of like building your life resume. I think a life well lived is no regrets, leaving the world a better place, being loved and having loved. At the end of the day, it's not about how many deals you've made or assets under management. It's like, have you enjoyed yourself? Have you done the things that you've wanted to do? Versus, just grinding it out at a job that you don't like and just are miserable, not doing, not traveling and exploring and learning and challenging yourself and failing, quite honestly. If you haven't failed a number of times, you haven't tried hard enough, and I failed plenty of times, and gotten, thousands of no's over my lifetime, but it's only made me better and stronger, and it's part of life.
How did you initially embrace that? Was it something natural to you, or was that a learning curve to each no is getting me closer to that yes that I'm looking forward to?
I guess just putting on my blinders. I had a goal in mind, and nothing was going to stop me, and just always learning. Okay, how can I learn from it? You never stop learning, and I think that's a life well lived too. Like, I can learn from anyone, and that makes me a better person and a better operator. And if I'm focused on a goal, then you just keep finding a way and don't give up. Usually it's just like the one little, Ed Milet says, like one more rep or something like that. And that's what it is. Just keep pushing. And usually when it's you feel the heaviest weight on your shoulders is like you're that close to making a breakthrough,
Yeah. I think Ed Milet's book is called The Power of One More.
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
And he has that theme going, it's like just one more rep, one more call, one more connection can change your life. Where did that mindset come from? Is that something your parents instilled in you, or is that something that you cultivated over the years, being exposed to people like Ed Milet, Jesse Itzler, Dr. Joe Dispenza?
Yeah, I think, my parents were definitely tough and worked hard. My dad is funny. So I just remember, as growing up, he rented out rusted out gym equipment. Like he would go on the treadmill and like be groaning after like 5 minutes, and I'd be laughing, but he'd be on it till 99 minutes till the thing expired. It wouldn't go any longer, and he would rust out the treadmill, the bike that he had, because he just pushed through, he just powered through. So it wasn't social media that kind of taught me this stuff. It was their hard work. But as I got older, certainly I like listening to those people, and it helps me too. Like I follow a lot of people that give me reminders and help me get energized for the day ahead, that, keep me focused and not to feel beat up when things aren't going the way I want it to be, like I have to control the controllables, and over time I keep doing the work, and it will continually lead to success over time,
Yeah. So what has been the tool that you found to turn around the day that's maybe not headed your way?
I guess just taking a deep breath is, going outside, getting some fresh air and walking around and getting things in perspective. I'm alive, I'm healthy, I'm loved. Like, that gives you a lot of perspective. Like this, there's a saying, I guess, this too shall pass, and when you're, you feel like, and I felt this like a few weeks ago. There was just like, it was just everything was not working right. A friend of mine's father was in very, very bad health. Who I've known him for almost 50 years. My daughter was having some issues. There were some issues at work, and like there's a moment where you feel a bit overwhelmed, and you just got to take a deep breath and know that this too shall pass. And so you have to remind yourself of that sometimes, and maybe you need someone else to remind you of that too.
Yeah. And what I usually try to do in those moments is like actually come into that moment and forget about trying to solve the past and the future, because that feels like taking too big of a chunk of a meal at the same time. But if you take it moment by moment, you can eventually solve it or work through it, live through it.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, Gary, I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for coming on the Path to Wealth today. Where can people connect with you and Break of Day Capital?
Yeah, head to our website, breakofdaycapital.com. You can find out about our latest deal, our podcast, our book, get on our investor list, and our social media links. So everything is there on our website, and happy to connect.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to add everything in the show notes, especially the link to your book, so that everybody can go and check it out and learn how to invest. Thank you for joining us at the Path to Wealth. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Check out our upcoming guests and be sure to share it with all your friends and family that want to take their life to the next level of wealth.